Ano ai ke aloha kākou. Welcome back to another episode of Iola Kalahui, where we deconstruct colonization here in Hawaii. I'm Kikoa Ke Aloha, and as always, I mahalo you for jumping on. Whether you're watching this on YouTube or listening to this podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, this is a space for reflection, for truth, and for acknowledging kuleana. I hope to give viewers and listeners language to talk about the things that are affecting us. You know, the little things that you know in your na'au are heva, but you can't quite explain. And when you try, the passion and frustration comes out, and before you know it, the message is lost. Believe me, I get it. But today I want to talk about power. Who has power? Who doesn't have power? And how that imbalance continues to shape the lives of Kanaka Oiwi every single day. Because lately there's been a lot happening that's got people feeling upset, feeling frustrated and hopeless. And when you look closer, you see it's not just one thing, it's a pattern. I'm talking specifically about three major issues that are front and center right now. The first is the lawsuit challenging Kamehameha School's admissions policy. The second is the 30-meter telescope project, or TMT, and their recent push to identify a new site on Mauna Kea after years of trying to push past us. And the third is Governor Josh Green's decision to work with Dan Driscoll, the Secretary of the Army, to extend their land leases across our islands. If you're not giving it much thought, these might seem like three separate issues: education, astronomy, and land management. But when you step back, there are deeper themes to be seen that connect them. Together, they really reveal something about the way that power operates here in Hawaii and why, for so many of us, this moment feels so heavy. So let's unpack that and just dive right in. Each of these issues touches something sacred: Pauahi's legacy for our kamali'i, our aina, our sovereignty, our self-determination. These aren't just political issues, they're deeply personal. And I would argue that they're spiritual. For Kanaka, they hit differently. Our connection to Hawaii isn't just about where we live, it's about mo'oku au hau. And it's about our reciprocal relationship that we have to care for this land and in turn to be cared for by it. It's about the stories of our kupuna who fought for this land before us and who taught us the value of aloha aina. It's about our kama and the hanauna that come after us. So when something threatens that, whether it's a court case or a telescope or a military lease, it's not just an inconvenience, it's an injury to our psyche. We are inherently invested in these issues, whether we realize it or not. And when people talk about these issues like they're just policy debates, that's where the disconnect happens. For us, these issues are about our survival as a people. Let's start with the first theme that ties these together, which is unequal impact. These issues might technically affect everybody in Hawaii, but the truth is they disproportionately harm Kanaka Oiwi. Take the Kamehameha Schools case, for example. The schools, which were established by Princess Bernice Pauahi Bishop to uplift Hawaiian children after generations of displacement and disenfranchisement. The admissions policy is part of that purpose. It's not exclusionary, it's restorative. It's one of the few institutions that still hold space specifically for Native Hawaiian advancement, and yet is being challenged under the same legal system that caused the inequities it was meant to address. If Kamehameha School's admissions policy goes away, opportunities are given to students who don't necessarily need remediation while perpetuating disparity in our communities. There is no plan to offset the negative impacts for Native Hawaiians by dismantling this system. The challengers know this, but their goal isn't to serve our people, it's to take opportunities away from us. Or we can look at the TMT issue. The push to build on Mauna Kea disregards the relationship that we have with that mountain. It trivializes our cultural practices and our worldview. When we stood up to protect it, we were treated as if we were standing in the way of progress. I can't tell you how many times people called me stupid or crazy or anti-science or whatever the next pejorative was. I spent a lot of days up on the Mauna in 2019 to do my part. And I actually reflect on that experience with such profound gratitude. But it was a heavy day when the kupuna were arrested on the Alahulu kupuna. I wasn't up there that day because of kuleana that I had in the Waukanaka, which is work. But as soon as I was able to, I headed to the side of Queen Ka'ahumanu Highway because I lived in Kona at the time. And I held my High Hawaii proudly and a sign to ku'e the actions taken against our people. I stood there for 2 hours as long as there was sunlight. Most people honked in support as they drove past because, busy spot. But there were three people that I remember who flipped me off as they drove by. Me, a single Kanaka holding a sign and a Hi Hawaii. There is no feeling like knowing there are people who live on our aina who feel so negatively about us that they openly and enthusiastically disrespect us. So the same pattern repeats. Outsiders get to decide what happens to our land while our voices are dismissed. No other group in Hawaii has their Pilina to Aina severed with the construction of TMT. It's only Kanaka. Trying to cite it in a different spot on Mauna Kea is not improving his chances, or whatever Mayor Kimo Alameda said. It will be met with the same resistance. But I wonder to what end our state government will actually push us. And then there's the military leases, like for Pohakuloa, which is basically on the slopes of Mauna Kea. Governor Josh Green recently worked with Dan Driscoll, who is Donald Trump's appointee to Secretary of the Army, to extend military control over thousands of acres of Hawaiian lands. Lands, by the way, that were never ceded and never willingly given. For generations, these lands have been bombed, contaminated, and restricted from Hawaiian access. And now, those leases are being quietly renewed with no real public process and very little transparency, and certainly no Hawaiian consent. I want to be clear about something. When talking about this issue, I realize that the governor is stuck between a rock and a hard place. I get that. I get that the military presence exacerbates our housing crisis. I understand that the United States can exercise eminent domain and use the condemnation process to take our land. I understand that Dan Driscoll, Trump's guy for the army, is threatening to exercise eminent domain. So I am under no illusions about who has power in this case and what tools are available to them. But my kuleana isn't to be appreciative for the crumbs we get as some token of goodwill on the part of an empire. I can acknowledge that maybe the governor did what was in accordance with his conscience. That doesn't mean that I won't elevate the very shitty position that this puts Hawaiians in, and only Hawaiians. When Makua Valley was used for live fire training, when Kaho'olawe was getting bombed, it was our Vahipana and our history being wiped away in front of us, not anybody else's. So as long as the empire wields power over us and coerces us into compliance, it will be my kuleana to continue calling these issues out for the harm that they actually perpetuate. So yeah, these issues affect Hawaiians differently because they're rooted in a history of harm that continues to this day. When decisions are made without us or are made against us, they compound generations of trauma. Our investment in these issues is deeper because they cut into who we are. The next theme is power. And this one is hard to talk about, but we have to be honest. Kanaka are outnumbered in our own homeland. So, politically, economically, and socially, so much of the time, power sits in the hands of other people. Let me be clear, though, that doesn't mean that we have no power. It just means that we have to be creative about how we generate and exercise power. Settler colonialism isn't just some chapter in history, it's an active system that continues today. It's the structure that allows outsiders to make decisions about Hawaiian lands, Hawaiian education, and Hawaiian futures with little to no Hawaiian input. So we have to ask, who has power in these situations? How do we achieve power? How do we maintain power? And if we don't hold power, are we really expected to trust the people that do will act in our best interest? We're told to trust the system, but the system was never built for us. It was built on us. And yet, despite all of that, we continue to organize, we continue to show up, and we continue to speak out. We find ways to reclaim what was taken. That's the resilience of our people. Another pattern that's emerging is how these issues are being used to divide us as a lahui. And that's really not new. It's a tactic as old as colonization itself. Pitting Native people against each other, typical. With the Kamehameha lawsuit, for example, you see a handful of Hawaiians who are coming out to support the dismantling of the admissions policy, arguing that it's unfair or outdated because they're disgruntled and they feel wronged. And this was introduced by a foreign perspective. Meanwhile, many others here in Hawaii are standing firm in support of Kamehameha to uplift Pauahi's people. And what happens? Hawaiians end up fighting other Hawaiians, all because of some resentful guy, Edward Bloom, and his band of attack dogs at the so called Students for Fair Admissions. Or we can look back to 2019 when Kanaka were forced to arrest other Kanaka on the Mauna. We saw their inner conflict. We could see how they felt. We saw how they treated each other with aloha, even when the system forces us to be in conflict with one another. You know, a friend of mine became a police officer for exactly this reason. She shared with me that her inspiration was driven by the understanding that the law impacts Hawaiians disproportionately, and she thought of the police officers who were forced to arrest Queen Liliuokalani and how it was them who managed to still treat her with the dignity and the respect that she deserved. My friend saw the system as flawed and for what it was, and she saw the need to have someone inside of it who could be a queen's servant, so to speak. In many ways, as somebody who is seeking public office, I recognize that same motivation in myself. Now, the imagery from the Mauna when DLNR officers were forced to arrest the kupuna, they offered the dignity and respect our people deserved, but they were forced to act as agents of the state. It's painful to see this, but we have to recognize that when we're divided, it becomes easier for others to control the narrative. They maintain the status quo and they prevent us from moving forward as Lahui. And finally, the last theme, one that underlies all of this, is how American law is weaponized against us. Each of these issues is being fought within a legal framework that was imposed on our people, a system that was never meant to recognize our sovereignty, our culture, or our worldview. In fact, a system that was meant to suppress it, a system meant to benefit a specific group of people according to the United States Constitution. Don't get me wrong. Over time, people have won their equality through hard fought battles. The civil rights movement was one of those hard fought battles. Kama'aina in Hawaii, in fact, not just Hawaiians, but the population as a whole, supported the civil rights movement because we understood the need for it. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s contingent were even gifted lei, and they wore them during the historic March on Selma. Civil rights law and subsequent political movements sought to remediate the disparate experiences of many BIPOC folks, and the US was headed in the right direction. Was headed in the right direction. Shockingly and pretty disgustingly, civil rights law is now being perverted to take opportunities away from the communities who need them the most. At Kamehameha, for example, a school established in the Kingdom of Hawaii to serve Hawaiian children who didn't stand a chance, is being challenged by a literal foreign government to take those opportunities away from the people that Princess Pauahi sought to uplift. Don't be fooled. There is nothing fair about this. People like Edward Bloom have just discovered how to manipulate laws meant to uplift underserved populations. They are literally using civil rights laws to suppress the advancement of communities of color. From the courtroom to the governor's office, the same system is used to justify desecration, dispossession, and occupation. Threatening eminent domain? Real classy. It's a way to exert force and to even coerce the governor to act. It's a terrible position for all of us to be in, but we have to acknowledge that this is the system working exactly as it was meant to serve specific people in power. It's American law that upholds the TMT's right to claim sacred space. It's American law that allows the military to extend leases on stolen land. And it's American law that questions whether a Hawaiian school can prioritize Hawaiian children. And that is the ultimate power play. Because when American law is used to silence Native voices, it's not justice, it's control. It's a continuation of the very process that overthrew our kingdom and has kept us in struggle ever since. So, when you take all of this together, the lawsuits, the telescope, the military deals, you start to see the bigger picture. These are not isolated events. They are symptoms of the same imbalance of power that has defined the Hawaiian experience for over a century. At the root of it, we're looking at two worldviews in conflict. One built on extraction and ownership, and another built on relationship and responsibility. One sees land as property, the other sees land as family. And through it all, what keeps us going, what keeps us grounded, is aloha aina, that love for our people, our aina and our kupuna, and our future. Our frustration isn't born from hate, it's born from aloha. Aloha refuses to look away when harm is being done to us and to what we hold sacred. I know that's a lot to take in. Trust me, I know. I have not stopped thinking about this for like a couple of days. But with my campaign really getting off the ground, so much of my attention has had to go to that. And I hope to create more episodes soon. But if you're feeling some kind of way about recent events, trust me, you are in good company. Mahalo piha for listening to this episode of Iola Kalahui. These conversations are not easy, but they are necessary. If you care about Hawaii, then these issues matter to you. What happens to Kanaka Oiwi ultimately shapes the future of this place that we all call home. So here's my challenge to you. Wherever you are, however you can, get informed, get involved, support Hawaiian led movements, show up at hearings, share information, speak up in your own circles. Use your art, your voice, your platform, your time, whatever it is that you have to move us toward justice. And if this episode spoke to you, please subscribe to Iola Kalahui podcast. Follow me on social media. Don't forget to rate it 5 stars if you're listening on Spotify and Apple. Subscribe if you're on YouTube, and share this episode with somebody who needs to hear it. Until next time, take good care of yourselves and each other. E pupu kahi holomua. Let's unite to move forward. Iola Kalahui. Ahui ho kako.